Hello and welcome to the Scotland Rugby News podcast. It's a midweek fantastic, and we thought we were at the end of the season, but we're not. I'm your host, Bruce Aitchison from Happiness Egg Shape, and the man over there, the editor extraordinaire, Scotland Rugby News. Hello, Gavin Harper.
Hello, Bruce Aitchison. How are you?
Yeah, I'm all right, thanks. I'm all right. It's blue sky, sunshine, Olympics are on, life's all right. Although I'm a bit sad about Team GB's performance, I have to say.
It was, it was tough to watch. I felt sorry for Lisa Thompson. Hard going, losing that quarter-final and then following it up with the game against China, a bit of a howler from Isla Norman Bell. Tough, but look, the quality of some of those teams, like Australia were phenomenal for 2.5 days, and then totally fell away. New Zealand were just New Zealand, they're so good. But yeah, for the talent that was in that GB squad, I was a bit disappointed.
Yeah, it's a tough one, and nobody's beating themselves up more than them and Kieran Beattie and people questioning GB value of sevens. The one that makes me sort of raise my eyebrows is Scotland, England, Wales seem to be taking it less seriously, and Ireland have upped how seriously they take it. And it, the women maybe didn't perform as well as I thought they were going to, but the men's, well, probably the men didn't perform as well as they had either, but they've lit up the series. They've been very, very good, and for years Ireland didn't play sevens. I remember Beth Coulter, who ran a lot of the then IRB sevens tournaments and ran Hong Kong, who's sadly no longer with us. I remember speaking to her and her saying her biggest disappointment about sevens is that Ireland didn't play it because she never got to see her Irish boys, and now they're carving up.
Yeah, they were really good, and actually it speaks volumes to how seriously they took it and what the kind of value they saw in the competition. That Hugo Keenan missed the summer tour to South Africa, go and play Olympic sevens. It's not just Dupont, who, by the way, is just...
He's okay, isn't he? Like, he's still no George Horn, but he's an okay rugby player.
He's okay. If you could put him and Finn Russell in the same team, George Horn might have to play in the wing or something. But Dupont's just ridiculous.
It's the way they used them, though. They didn't start him, and then he comes on and makes an impact. Like, that's a smart way to manage a sevens squad. That potentially he was one of your strongest seven, but you're bringing him in, and he never failed to do something special.
There was one of the games, I think it might have been the quarterfinal. It was either the quarterfinal or the semi-final, and he came on and he totally changed the game on his own. And you very, very rarely see that in sevens, where one player makes such a difference. And I think it was pretty close. And then all of a sudden, France were totally out of sight. So actually, when the final, I thought, this guy's going to come on. You want to be 2 scores in front before he comes on, and probably more.
It's the first time I think many neutrals would have not been supporting Fiji in a final.
Yeah, I must admit, I found that quite jarring.
I didn't enjoy it. Me and my wife fell out again because I can't not support Fiji. I just love everything about it. For Oscar to be coaching, having been getting pelters about their performance, and Ben Ryan showed a lot of faith in him as a player and helped him develop, and Ben Ryan got pelters for playing him in the team, never mind anything else, then making him captain. For him to potentially have won a gold medal as a player and then as a coach, like, that's incredible. And you just got to love Fiji. But France, it's scary to think what the future might hold for France.
Yeah, I think this is it. French rugby seems to have sort of got its act together a wee bit in the last 5, 6, 7 years, because
because of my pal Jean-Marc Bederot. That's why.
There you go. You've another thing that Bruce Aitchison's laid claim to.
Well, years ago I went on the Six Nations Coaching Conference. Have I told you this story before?
I don't think so.
So 6 coaches from the 6 countries are chosen to go to a conference. And the under-20s World Cup was in Italy. So we 6 of us from Scotland went to Italy, and we were met by, so it was 36 coaches there. Gregor Townsend came and gave a keynote speech. Jake White was there as special guest, drank a shed load of red wine and told us everything about Montpellier at the time. Great guy. But we had a whale of a time. Do you know some of the coaches that were on that? It cracks me up, because now I am speaking to you. Leo Cullen, same course as me. Kenny Murray, same course as me. Stephen Jones, same course as me. Like, all these boys that have gone on to do unbelievable. And Jean-Marc was, so you get put in groups of 6 with one coach from each. And I was just like the boy on work experience. Like, I was the competition winner in the group. And it was just, it was an amazing thing. But Jean-Marc Bederot was there, Frenchman, and he's the guy who it was him that came up with kind of the 10-year plan, and right, they're going to play there, and they're going to play there, and they're going to do that. So he messages me saying, I'm on my way in the car to the Stade France. I said, I bet you are. But they had a plan, and they stuck to it. And, he can tell you stories about all those players, Ntamak and Dupont and all that is coming through, knowing that in that number of years' time, they're going to be unreal. Imagine if you had a plan, Gav.
Imagine where we would be if we had a plan. Imagine what this podcast would be if we planned it out every week.
Hey, that's the plan. Look at it. It's a blank sheet. That's the plan. But the French, I mean, to have record-breaking crowds, to have women playing in that venue for the first time, the quality of play was, for both men and women, I think the Olympics has taken another jump up for what the series is. The seriousness and the time they've got to plan and prepare for the Olympics. I mean, there's Australia, the women. You're probably thinking they're winning gold.
Yeah,
it's going to be tough, but they're going to win. And New Zealand just know how to do it in those 4-year cycles. For Canada, who were a shambles not that long ago, to get silver. And then there's America, who have just, I mean, that's now scary, what America are going to do, and the professional league that they're bringing into Denver, Boston, Chicago, in America. The $4 million money for the women's sevens program, it's been on now. Like, that's frightening.
Again, somebody with a plan has given them a bit of direction. And yeah, look, I think to go back to closer to home, you'd like to think that one of the first things that a new Scottish Rugby chief exec is going to do is implement something similar, because you do feel like everybody else, whether it's countries that are ranked below us just now or are above us, are accelerating, and we are caught in the middle of not really going anywhere. But yeah, look, it's been great to see. I think the overall quality, as you say, of the whole Olympic sevens was pretty good. I think it's hard to, for a lot of people, they might dip in and out of the World Series. I don't generally watch that much of it, but there are the names that you hear from the Perry Bakers to whoever else, that come around every year, and I think generally it's been a pretty good advert for rugby. It's also, I think, as you say, gone up that level, and I think that's probably added to the. It's a funny one, because rugby's not one of those sports where winning an Olympic gold medal is probably the absolute pinnacle, but I think it probably has gained a wee bit more.
Oh, man. Yeah, I think it has. I mean, there's if Dupont wins a World Cup, he, I think, is able to go, do you know what? I've done it all.
Yeah.
Like, that's when you can, they spoke about Messi, who couldn't be claimed to be the best player ever because he hadn't won a World Cup.
Yeah.
If Dupont wins a World Cup and an Olympic gold and everything else that he's won, at club level, you'd be hard pressed to say he's not the best ever. Now, I don't know if France have got in them to win a World Cup, because they seem to be able to hit self-destruct when it comes to it. But that would be impressive. Ireland, now I don't know enough, but Ireland seemed to me to be using that almost as their fifth pro team. Like, here's a way to keep people in a pathway, if nothing else. Like, okay, you're maybe not quite at URC level, but here's the sevens. But also to younger players, here's a way for you to come in, show yourself, be exposed at that incredible level, tour the world, see some things. I mean, that Scotland tour, which we'll get to, a lot of people are saying, oh, but one of the good things is they've been away, they've been to tier 2. Yeah, the sevens circus rolls into town, 5 days, boom, in and out, away you go. But what an opportunity.
And I think when you look back at I've seen plenty of comments this week on our social media channels about the days of Scotland sevens, and you look at the players that came through that and have gone on to great things. Mark Bennett, Hoggy played in the Commonwealth Games. Darcy, Magnus Bradbury, like there's Lee Jones. There's so many that you'd be here all day listing them. But actually, you're right. These guys at the stage that they were, take Hoggy out because he was an exception. These guys couldn't get in the Edinburgh and Glasgow teams at the stages where they were regulars in the sevens. Somebody like Darcy probably went from the 20s into the sevens for a couple of years and built that experience of going away, travelling, but also playing against some of the world's best sevens players. And it's done all these players the world of good. And I feel like that's a total missed opportunity.
Well, think of those 20s boys that have just played the trophy, and we don't really know what they're going to do next. But if there was a sevens circuit starting in whenever it was, building up to Dubai before Christmas, and then after everything starts rolling towards Hong Kong and wherever they have their final event with nobody in the stands, which is another one that winds me up about sevens, but that's for another day. But I just, I think I said this last week, sevens is for the masses.
Yeah.
But the masses have loved it and embraced it. Folk are talking about Madison Levi. Folk are talking about Anton Dupont, who didn't know him because they didn't watch 15s, but now they know him. When you see the reception they're getting in France, now I get it, winning a gold at your home games is one of those, once in a many generational thing. But the scenes and the way they've been able to do their Moulin Rouge dance routine every time somebody points a camera at them, like unreal. But for the Canadian women to be able to go back, for Fiji to be, not that disappointed, 2 golds and a silver over 3 competitions, like for that to be a massive success. I just think there's so many things going on, and it's keeping American rugby going, because the American 15s programs no flash. But Mike Friday, I mean, he's relentless in his pursuit of making sevens something worthwhile and valued in America.
Yeah, I think just on that, just before we finish on the sevens, the dance was terrible.
No, it wasn't. It was class. Are you kidding me off?
No, it's
You're
not
just
good.
jealous because you will not be able to move. There's no chance you could pull those moves.
Never in a million years. And do you know something? I wouldn't even embarrass myself trying. And it must be jealousy, but nah, not for me. Just get your medal and go for a lap on her, but definitely do not be pulling out those. But to be fair, if you're Antoine Dupont, you can do everything you want.
But you know what? The other bit about Dupont, he's a leader. He's a captain in 15s anyway, but he's obviously an experienced leader. But when you watch a lot of it, he's in the back row, like the dance. He's in the back row. He's not pushing himself towards the limelight or the camera. He almost seems not reluctant, because I think he gets it, and maybe he doesn't have to because it comes to him. But I just thought the whole way he conducted himself was excellent. I hope there's no skeletons in that closet, because I think a lot of people would be absolutely gutted.
Nah, look, he was different class, and like I had a few messages from folks saying somebody's missed out on this to get him in the squad, and even that, like as you say, the way he's sort of gone about being part of the squad, it's definitely not all about him.
Nah.
He is as much a part of that team as any of the other 11 or 12 guys.
And it's also probably been quite grounding for him because he wasn't the expert.
Yeah.
Dan Carter came out saying how amazing it is that he's been able to come in. A lot of people have given Dan Carter a hard time, saying, "Oh, you're obviously not understanding what it's like, and it happens all the time in the women's game." You're like, "Gee whiz, give him a break." What he's saying is this guy has come in and pretty much been the standout. Is what he was saying. You're right. It was class. It was one of those really feel good moments. Then there's a couple of negative stories come out. One of them about GB women, which I hope. I don't know how that's going to turn out, but I just thought it was such a positive thing for the game that we should be enjoying. I'm just sad that Scotland or GB didn't get to play a bigger part in it than we probably all wanted. Because I think the women had spoken really ambitiously about getting a podium finish. So to finish where they did, I think is a big disappointment for them.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think saw some comments from Kieran Beattie today, who said he thought they weren't far off the medals, but ultimately you finish where you finish, and that'll be tough for them to take.
Yeah, well, it's crazy. Australia didn't get a medal, but anyway. So the tour finished in interesting fashion in Uruguay. It was a funny performance, wasn't it?
Yeah, do you know Gregor Townsend said after the game it reminded him of the Italy game in the Six Nations, and there was a lot of that for me that they looked. Some of the players I thought looked exhausted, and frankly, who could blame them? I think one of the takeaways that I had from that was, why do we need to play Uruguay out with the international window basically 12 months after playing the first game of the season? Madness.
The whole international window thing just cracks me up. What's the point? Who's that for?
I mean, it benefits nobody really. It doesn't benefit any of the players.
Well, it does. It benefits the exiles because the clubs are in charge and able to say, right, home you come, son. The street lights are on. Get your jacket and let's go. Like that bit. There's just so many things about the game, and when I see the calls for world leagues and talking about how Argentina and South Africa should join to make it an 8 nations and all that. Now, I think these are just guys with a keyboard that come up with this stuff, but stuff like that just makes me feel like, what are we doing? I didn't want to watch more and more test match rugby. I think there's enough. I think we just need to be really getting excited about what we've already got. Like the Six Nations doesn't need to be longer.
No, it doesn't. And you also don't need to take out that second break week and force players to play 5 games in 6 weeks, because actually what you're doing by doing all these things is totally diluting the quality of the product. And if you talk about rugby in an entertainment sense, you surely want to protect the 80 minutes out on the pitch. And I think the frustration for me with the game in Uruguay was it felt unnecessary from a Scottish point of view. Yes, Uruguay will have benefited from it. They obviously got whacked by Argentina the week before, but that seems to have been a total one-off disaster for them. I just think by playing that one extra game, I get that. So World Rugby had decided that Scotland were going to North America. The SRU or Scottish Rugby have decided that they would add 2 games on to make it more of a tour. I think we would have got plenty out of playing that one extra game without having to go to Uruguay and asking guys, Rory Darge, Matt Fagerson, etc., who have had 12-month, 13-month seasons to go and play one more game when, it'll not be long before Glasgow are back in pre-season. Edinburgh are already back. Let's not have these players playing 12-month seasons every year.
I spoke to 2 former Scotland internationals on Thursday who remain nameless, mostly because they disagreed with my view. But I was sort of questioning the tour, and they were saying, no, it's brilliant, and they got to tier 2, and World Rugby have paid for it, and all that kind of thing. Here's a bit I don't understand, and maybe you can enlighten me. How come Scotland get told where to go and nobody else does?
So,
Like, I didn't get that, but also there's folks saying we've not been to New Zealand for however many years, but we're supposed to go during COVID, and I kind of get that, but I would be sad if Scotland went to New Zealand to play 2 tests and come home and didn't play Bay of Plenty on a Tuesday and play Southland on a Tuesday, or go and do those bits, because that, to me, that would be a tour. Take 45 players and play Saturday, Tuesday, and reach out to the NPC level teams, train at club grounds, and make it a tour. And it doesn't have to be as long. You've got your 2 test matches that are full cap internationals, and then I've played for Scotland, it's just not been in a test match like you used to do.
It's an interesting point, but to go back to the last part of playing for Scotland, but not in a cap international, and there will be plenty of games that don't fall into that. But there are now so many games that weren't capped previously that have now been retrospectively awarded caps, that I think you sort of, if that was against for example, if Scotland played a Samoan select 15 or something in New Zealand, you start entering into kind of murky ground as to what is and what isn't worthy of a cap. And I think that's kind of the point I was making last week.
We're already there, brother.
Yeah, this is it. I think that was the point I was making last week, that, like, how can we play Chile 2 weeks ago, but we play Chile again in November, but one's worth a cap and the other's not? Chile won't have the depth that they can say to, 30 other guys, right, on you go. They might have to field some of the same players, but we're saying we'll play a weaker team than played Chile. And does that then deserve to be a Scotland representative? I don't know.
And that's why I would like it to be really clear that they play Waikato on a Tuesday, and they play Tasman on the Tuesday. So it's not even close to being a select or an international team. They go to Canada and they play. Then they play Ontario Select, and in the Ontario Select, they've actually roped in a couple of US Eagles and a couple of boys that are kind of looking for a contract and whatever it is. But they're played against a Scotland team that isn't a cap. That to me, that's touring. That's the bit. To go and play test matches leaves me cold. Some of the best bits of watching the Lions in 1997. Yes, there was the test matches, but it was watching them going to play Transvaal and Western Province, and those games where players got to show themselves and go, right, actually, I'm a test match player. If Ian McGeechan and Jim Telfer had picked their test team when they were on the plane on their way to South Africa, it would have been quite different for the one that ended up playing in that first test. But they were given a chance to perform.
And actually, by the time of the third test, they had A, so many injuries, and B, players who were maybe a bit of drop of form or whatever, that actually they needed players to be completely ready to go in and play South Africa. And I know they got beat, but, they stood on the verge of winning a test series 3-0. If you had guys who hadn't played for 3 or 4 weeks, like, you're hiding at nothing to begin with there.
Like, could Chile come and play Edinburgh on a Tuesday night? An Edinburgh team that's not the team that's going to be playing against Munster on the Saturday, or it's Edinburgh without their internationals, and play Glasgow the following week. And they've played 2 really competitive games. We've had a chance to play. I don't know. I don't know where I sit with it. The thing about this tour that I'm not sure about. I'm not sure I'm any wiser about how Scotland play after those 4 games than I was before they went looking ahead to the autumn series.
Well, one of the things I thought was interesting, it's intrigued me that you said that, because in the Uruguay game, I thought And I thought in the North American games, they talked a lot about the weather and the conditions playing a part, the humidity, whatever. And I could kind of understand playing that a wee bit more methodical, slower, actual pace of the game because our fitness then would tell at the end. I didn't really see that in South America where the conditions were more favourable. But the thing about, when Gregor Townsend took over, it was like this fastest rugby in the world. We'll just run everything. You got the ball's not even crossed the line, and Stuart McInally's got the ball in his hands ready to throw the line out. That's done. But I liked that because I knew that was Scotland's identity. Now, I don't know. And it worries me that when we don't have Xander or Jack Dempsey or Sione to knock us over the gain line, which didn't happen against Uruguay. I thought they did pretty well at stopping Matt Fagerson, apart from I think he had one really good carry off a restart, and they stopped Stafford pretty well. That it's not like a kind of 10-man rugby, right? We're over the gain line, and now we're going to play width to width. Yeah, I'm not sure. I agree with you. I don't really understand what they've developed as a team, and I think actually what they've learned from the pecking orders and stuff in terms of November and Six Nations is actually more about people who haven't played well than individuals who've said, yeah, give me a shot. The exception to that is probably Dylan Richardson at hooker, but that's because George Turner's not available. I don't know what the Johnny Matthews situation is. You'd like to think he comes back, but like the other side of the coin is Ben Healy for Adam Hastings. I think Ben Healy didn't have a great tour, and Adam Hastings looked pretty good. So for me, Hastings needs to be the backup to Finn. I don't know.
And I get that, but then you throw in Ross Thompson and you throw in what's going to happen at Edinburgh with game time and what's going to happen at Glasgow with Adam, and you're making that call based on Canada, America, Chile, and Uruguay, and the autumn's a bit of a roller coaster. It'll be interesting to see the selections. I'm not sure if we'll know more then, or if it'll be more, let's try and see what happens because the Six Nations is the focus. I'm intrigued to see what happens next, but Glasgow and Edinburgh have to get off to a decent start.
Yeah, 100%. And I think actually you'll learn more or as much from the first 5-6 weeks of the URC season than we will about players playing. Adam Hastings, for example, who's got 30 caps, playing against Uruguay in the end of July when the guy could probably, how many injuries has he had? Does he need a break? The other interesting one, just talking about tens, is Tom Jordan, because I think he qualifies in the autumn.
Denny.
And I know you hate the qualification.
No, I don't hate it. No. Don't you go slinging mud at me. I don't hate it. I just don't think it needs to be brought up, and neither does Tom Jordan at this point, because if Hastings is going and Jordan was supposed to be a centre, good luck, Franco, making that call when you've got Sione and Hugh Jones outside you. I think there's going to be a lot to learn. Listen, the positives, right? Here's the positive spin. They've taken the game to places that it doesn't often get exposure, which I think is good. And Scotland have potentially and can potentially be seen as the good guys by doing that. And I think that's a good thing. Players have been blooded. They've come together. They've seen what it's like to be in an international camp. Those are the positives.
Yeah, 100%. And actually, do you know what? Somebody like Ewan Johnson, who's come from nowhere and had a good season at Oyonnax, despite them getting relegated out of the top 14, now knows what it's like to A, play for, and B, be away with Scotland. And actually, having had a taste of that, somebody like him and a Max Williamson should be saying, do you know what, if I don't get back in, let's not be hugely surprised if a lot of these players don't get back in the autumn, in the Six Nations. But there has to be a phasing out of some of our more experienced players. Otherwise, we're going to come to 2027, the end of that World Cup, and say we're going to have to do what Wales have done and just chuck everybody in and take the hits as they come. So, Ewan Johnson, Max Williamson, see Grant Gilchrist, Richie Gray. You know, like there has been a wee bit of succession planning that I think has maybe gone a bit under the radar. You know, we've developed a bit of depth in some positions. There are guys clearly, Gus Ward, Jamie Dobie, who can play at that level against better teams. How many of them go on to become regulars in the next 12, 18 months? I don't think there'll be that many, but yeah, I think it's been a worthwhile exercise, scheduling aside.
Yeah, okay. There's
You disagree?
no, I'm so, depending on what time of day you ask me, I'll give you a different answer. There's so much it frustrates me, and it's a long way to go, right? And against opposition that, you know, is memorable if it was your first, or you're now the Scotland's top try scorer or whatever it like. But and fair play to the supporters that went. Like I wish I had half your holiday budget. Like that's dedication and fair play, because every time the camera panned, you know, there's Scottish folk there, they're making noise, they're making friends, they're doing all that good stuff, all that missionary work that Scotland Rugby supporters do. And the players seem to get out and spread the word, and the local communities, you know, got a big kick out of it. I think all of that is great. I thought it was nice to see one of the Uruguayan kids that played in the 20s trophy got on. You know, those are nice little stories. I just, for us, I'm not, hopefully in a year or 18 months time, I'm going to go, you're right, it was absolutely, it's because of that tour that he's in, or we know this. I just can't see it at the moment.
Yeah, and I think that's it. I think it's difficult to see that, but you'd like to think that. I think I've heard grumblings, and Rob Robertson wrote about this for us during the week, that next summer's tour will be to somewhere like Samoa. And I think that is another perfect opportunity to give some of these guys another go, and you know, give them more.
So is this what our summer tours have become?
Listen, I think next year's one could be not a bad option, because
Because you want a trip out?
there is always that.
There's always that, yeah.
But can you imagine me in Samoa? Like,
It would be no, I better no. I
you know,
mean,
like, but no,
but there's coming back to a point I made earlier about Test match rugby. Like the Six Nations is my thing, right? I love the Six Nations. It was where I kind of found rugby and loved it, and I was lucky because I got to see Scotland win early in my life, which has totally messed up the rest of it.
at the 1925 Grand Slam.
Steady, geez, you're in with the low blows. Like that, and going to Murrayfield in a Six Nations is a special thing. The autumn tests I get. You know, when I was a kid, I think they would play Zimbabwe in November or something like that, and that was it. And it was whatever, tickets were half price. I don't know, but I kind of get that, and it feels like a window of opportunity. But to then also have summer tours, and there's just a lot there, and I don't think I can get excited for all of it. And I can't get excited if it's not the pinnacle. It's called Test match because it's a test, and it's the best, and it's the it's like going to watch pre-season friendlies at football when nobody wants to get hurt. Like it's like walking football. Like sometimes I go to those and I think I could actually be playing in this.
And yeah, that's the problem. It has to be. It has to be the absolute pinnacle. It has to be the best of your country against the best of the opposition. Otherwise, you are diluting the product, And yeah, you're right. The number of people I know who watch every Six Nations game, who watch every game in the autumn, who paid almost no attention to these last 4 weeks is too high. Would that be the same if we were sitting here talking about Scotland playing the Springboks, the All Blacks, the Wallabies? Definitely not. And we've got to find that, but we've
See,
got to.
and I get that, right? I get what you're saying, but I'm not sure how excited I would have been about Scotland playing South Africa in the summer. Because
You would have
I
been
don't
more
know.
excited about Scotland, South Africa than Scotland. A full blown Scotland team.
I would have been worried we got our backsides handed to us, because I'm not sure what squad we could have taken to compete against the squads that South Africa were fielding.
You've thought about this too deeply, Bruce.
No, I genuinely think there's too much Test match rugby. There's too much of it. They know each other. They can analyse each other. They know every line out call. They know every, the ball goes into the 15-metre channel and they set up a caterpillar and they box kick it and they play for territory and they kick penalty. And it's like you spoke before about having an identity. Springboks have got an identity and are totally unapologetic for it. And I think they should be loved for that, because I didn't have an issue with that.
Whether you agree with how they play or not.
Exactly, it's theirs.
It's theirs. And actually, I think the only other team that are like that are the All Blacks.
Yeah, and England lost the 1991 World Cup final against Australia because they decided in the final they had to play more expansively than they had, and then they got beat. And it was like, why would you not be yourself at the absolute pinnacle, most pressured situation? Oh, hang on, I'm going to pretend to be somebody else. Like that's bonkers. That's absolutely bonkers. And there's a lot of people trying to find their identity, and I've got reasons for that, and I'd probably get in trouble for saying them, and it's maybe for another day. But the traditions of, like, Scotland had to play little fast running rucks because they weren't as big and powerful as England, but England would set up mauls in the middle of the field because they were big and that was how their clubs played. And you didn't get fast rucks anymore because the game's not built like that, and you didn't put players into rucks, so there's no so if there's too many test matches, it just feels like it's the same. I would rather watch a tour where you're right, okay, we're going to South Africa, but there's also something else for me to watch. It's a bit different. So we're going to play on a Tuesday against Western Province, or we're going to, and I didn't mean the Super Rugby teams, right? Or no Super Rugby anymore, the URC teams. I mean, like, proper, that's getting us out into the community. Let's go and play at a wee stadium.
Franchises or something.
Aye, go and play at a smaller stadium against players that are never, ever going to get to play international rugby.
Yeah, and I think there's so many great tales from Lions tours about players who get, are like second, third division, work on a farm, play for their local team, get plucked out of obscurity, end up playing for some combined counties team against the British Lions, and they might have an absolute stormer, and all of a sudden they get picked up by somebody, or if they don't, all these players can when they hang up their boots, can say, played against the Lions, I played against whoever it is, whoever their opposite man is.
And there's no other sport has that. No other sport has that where you go and you do that.
No, you're 100% right. But I think the thing that, and we've spoken about this before, like, you see all the clips from other countries, particularly Southern Hemisphere, where, like, Dane Coles or Ardy Sevilla have gone back
playing club rugby,
and Bowden Barrett gone back to playing club rugby. Like, the idea that in a few years' time, some kid, will be able to say, Finn Russell might have been 40, but I played against Finn Russell, and he was still able to do X, Y, and Z.
But Ardy Savia is going to be the All Blacks captain now. Barrett's injured, and he was playing club rugby 3 weeks ago. So we're not talking about 40-year-olds. We're talking about Duan van der Merwe coming down the road to play at Haddington.
which would be incredible.
I'm not sure he'd get in the team, but
no, he might not. He might not. He'd have to play in the back row or something.
but that stuff is, why does it feel so far away? Geez, we've gone off tangent here. I'm blaming you for this. You told me to finish at 6:30.
Well, sorry to everybody, but we have gone off on a tangent. But you're right that actually it's not that long ago that pro players, were drafted to the Premiership clubs.
Oh, I've got stories for that too.
You know, like you would have had.
I drafted Daryl Gibson just so I could say I coached an All Black.
How many games did he play?
None. Doesn't matter. He was on my squad list. Because it gets to you choose all the boys that you think are going to get released, and then it just gets silly. So I just played it like fantasy league.
So who did when you were at Boroughmuir, who did you have?
I had but Boroughmuir, I did my homework. I got them all just about, and I had Neil Cochrane, Stuart McAnally. So I had 2 professional hookers, knowing that Ross Ford was always going to be playing, so I'd likely always get one of them.
Which doesn't say a lot about whoever your hooker was at Boroughmuir.
No, but my hookers were class because I had Carl Davies, who was outstanding. But the season before, we'd used 5 hookers.
Yeah.
So logic says you've got one in the first 15 and one on the first 15 bench, one in the second 15, one in the so that means that the season before I'd used my third 15 hooker. So by having 2 pro hookers in my rotation, listen, I'm telling you, it's
got that through, eh? Not just a pretty face.
Not just a pretty face, but genuinely, the Daryl Gibson one was like, right, well, I'm having the All Black. Daryl Gibson. Folk are going, why did you pick Daryl Gibson? Like, well, I wasn't getting any of the other ones either, so I might as well have had him. I had Jim Hamilton when I was at Watsonians. Jim played against Ayr on his comeback for injury. He was murder. He would have got dropped the following week if Edinburgh hadn't taken him back.
That good, was he?
Oh, he was hellish. I was only allowed to play him for 40 minutes as well. He came off at half time and he went, I'm really sorry. And I went, is that it? he actually said, look, I'll go back on. And I went, you can't do that because I'll get in trouble for Edinburgh if you play more than 40 minutes.
You said, no, we'll do without you.
I know, exactly. It's like, you just sit down, son, suck an orange. Those things were funny. It was like being at school. It was like PE class. Like you were picking. Like I always wondered if they told the boys who was last picked.
Aye, surely not. Nobody ever wants to be last picked. Having been there, nobody wants to be last picked.
But I think there's so many things that I've got so far away. Now, I didn't want to be tackling Ardi Savia in a club game, but you know fine well, New Zealand club rugby is a different beast. But I just think that the touring, the cap, I don't know where I'm going with this, but there's bits of it I don't massively understand, and I don't, people that know me know I love the game, but I don't love it that much that I have to watch every second of it, because a lot of it I don't get that excited about. Like Lee Halfpenny is signed for Harlequins. I doubt I will watch him playing for Harlequins because the Premiership's not really on a TV station I've got access to, and I'm not going to make that big an effort to try and watch it. In saying that, if MD at Harlequins wants to send me a couple of tickets, I will be at the Stoop for the opening game of the season. But there's a lot of rugby, and I can't watch it all. And if there's more tests, I can't watch them all.
I think this is it. There needs the whole calendar needs looking at, because you do end up diluting the product on the pitch. Players are all exhausted, but actually you're asking an awful lot of supporters to put their hands in their pockets and buy tickets, and
didn't even get me started on updating your kit every year either.
Yeah, exactly. New Scotland kit's out on Friday, and it's another it's another expense for folk to have to endure. But look, we know that being a sports fan, a rugby fan, is not a cheap venture.
Nah.
This feels like a great time, Bruce, to plug the £1 for 6 months offer to subscribe to Scotland Rugby News.
Why wouldn't you? And you get this. I mean, why would you not want to watch this? I got a few messages about after the Uruguay game going, I can't wait to hear what you say about the Uruguay game. I can't wait to hear what you say about the Uruguay game. I think we've been quite diplomatic though. Nah, listen, I hope Gregor and his coaching staff know more than they did before they went. And I think they do. And hopefully we will see that bear fruit. Maybe the autumn, potentially the Six Nations, but at some point we'll go, right, this guy's now got 20 caps and his first ones were on that tour, and they'll be able to tell the story about how it was an amazing experience and it made them thirsty for more and made them realise what hard work is and all those good stories.
But look, before we sort of finish talking about Scotland, we actually have to see that now. It's like we've talked about. It'd be nice to see in a year's time some of these guys. There now has to be that shift in mentality and focus from development to we have to start winning. Like it's not acceptable for South Africa and Australia to both come here and roll Scotland over, and it's all very nice and easy, and we play in front of them, and it's all we just roll over. Like Six Nations, we finished 4th last year. Probably the best chance we've ever had of doing something. That's not acceptable anymore. And
I'm interested that you say all that with such conviction, because I'm not sure what we've done that means we can look to the autumn and go, we can win 3 out of 4, or we can win 4 out of 4. England are now they appear to be getting better. Ireland are not getting any worse. France are certainly not getting any worse. So then you're looking at, right, that's 3 teams. Italy beat us this year. Wales look like they're potentially going to struggle for a bit, but they can't stay doing there forever. I'm just, I don't know. I'm getting too negative in my old age, but I hope I'm wrong. I hope that what we've done in the summer has helped. I hope Glasgow and Edinburgh both have cracking seasons. I'm not sure where that's coming because I don't know enough about the other teams, and I can't say really from any point of knowledge about what the other teams are. The Irish teams are still going to be strong. The South Africans are still going to be strong. The Italians are getting better. Like I don't know. The autumn will be a bit of a yardstick for me.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I just think there needs to be signs of Scotland actually, imposing themselves on these better teams. On like the Australia game's the one for me. I think South Africa I can accept are a better team than we are. They know exactly. They've got an identity. They won 2 World Cups in a row. Like they are the best team for me, the best team in the world. And do I expect us to beat them? No. And I think they are one team that, like, when I look at, like, go back to World Cup, you see Scotland against South Africa, and I just think, nah, never. Like, we don't have that ability in us. I'd fancy us more against the All Blacks than I would South Africa. But the Wallabies are kind of almost in a state of transition, a bit sort of not like found them sort of feet at all. But Joe Schmidt's a great coach, and he'll undoubtedly turn them into a pretty decent team if given the time. So that's the game for me that's like will be the barometer of where Scotland go in 2025. Before we move on, I saw it, I think, in one of the games over the one of the Scotland games, but I've seen it a couple of times in 20s games, and it's going in my rugby room 101, is this new law about marking kickoffs and restarts. That is dreadful.
Why?
I just don't. So my first point is you now can't take a scrum from the mark. So you take a mark, and what are you going to do with it? You're not going to tap and have a rumble in your own 22, so you're just going to kick it out and have a line out. Or we could have one phase You set up a caterpillar, as much as I hate them too, and you're going to kick it out anyway. It's pointless. The
Right.
things
So
like
what? So what are they encouraging? So didn't he kick it in the 22? What are they now encouraging you to do?
they want teams to kick it short and
And
contest or run
have
it
a
down
flipping competition, which
or
is
run
what.
it back.
Look at Sevens. Look how good it is when you compete. Look at what Jamie Ritchie's been like under a ball. I am all for it. Get that ball and contest it, because you can't contest the scrum anymore. The line out's nearly gone. Where on earth can you actually contest?
Tell you
And when
one
you
thing,
put the ball down into that corner and then it gets kicked to him, we start. You didn't have to be in your seat for the start of a professional game of rugby.
you don't. But you're right. If you go with that, the old school kickoff, where it's just outside the
Hi,
22,
Gilbert. That one's got snow on it.
you know
Love
it.
it.
Like fine, but yeah, I don't know. There's something about it for me. Like there's so many law variations and trials that have actually been that have worked.
Like what?
I love the goal line dropout. Like I think that is it puts the onus on the attacking team to actually do something rather than just pick and go. Right, that hasn't worked. What do you get as a reward? Oh, that's handy, a 5 meter scrum. Thanks very much. You've got to find a way over now, unless you're Sam Skinner and it doesn't get given. But do you know, like I think that's a good one. I think this idea of 10-minute, 20-minute red cards, like if you've smacked somebody in the head and you've been sent off, like you deserve to be sent off and you stay off. Which is maybe slightly different to your take on it, but nah, I don't know. The marking restarts is
Nah, I'm not sad about that, but the game's too complicated. Like, how on earth do you like again back to sevens being for the masses? Sevens is reasonably straightforward, and
it's certainly a lot less complicated than 15s.
If you do kick it into the 22, they are going to run it back at you, and it's exciting. Now, we can't necessarily have that in 15s, but 15s is so complicated. It's really, really difficult. And sevens hopefully is the gateway for a lot of players to go, oh, I like that. All right, now, I can play this the rest of the year. I'm going to give that a go. Because a lot of the sevens, while we loved watching the Olympics, I'm not really getting that excited about the seven circuit in Singapore. Or Hong Kong is very special to me. As most watching this who know me will know, Hong Kong special place, and I'd watch the grass grow in that stadium. But I didn't really get excited about really any of the others. I'd love it to be back at Murrayfield because I loved it when it was there. I know it wasn't a full stadium, but Scotland were performing as well, which was also worth it because they didn't get to play at home.
Yeah.
So that I always loved that. And now I think there's a chance to run a second tier tournament alongside, so you could have all sorts of. Maybe I'll run for Bill Beaumont's gig. Me and John Jeffrey.
What you were going to say there. I thought you were going to say Prime Minister or something. President of America.
I've thought about it. Taylor Swift's going to be President of America. Now, I think there's things we could do. I don't know why they don't happen. I don't understand the politics of the game, but there's things that we could do that I think could make it interesting and exciting.
Yeah, totally agree. I think, look, for me, we talked about this before, like, you can attract a new audience through new means, like whether it's the women's game, whether it's sevens. I think, rugby as a whole needs to look at how it markets sevens. I think it probably does a reasonable job at saying this is actually pretty different to 15s. But if that was an avenue to get folk in, to Murrayfield 10 years ago, 15 years ago, like we should have been absolutely lapping that up. And that feels like now we don't have that. That feels like a missed opportunity. But hopefully one day that'll come back.
Yeah, and I hope it never, ever, ever goes to Qatar. But that is
definitely one for another pod.
Geez, that made me feel sick to the stomach when I thought that is money over sense. Anyway, big chap, So do you get a bit of holiday now, or are you still on the go?
A few days off next week is the plan, and yeah, we'll see what that brings. I'll be hiding for this weather if it's still like this.
I know you'll be the guy going about with a big cloak on, like the traitors.
Listen, you joke. It's not far off that.
Hey, always leave the house with a hat on, Baldy friends. Always leave the house with a hat on. No need for sun cream. Just go for the all-out sunblock. Listen, love it as always. It's been an incredible thing. We thought we weren't going to have a summer of rugby to talk about, and as it turns out, there's a heap going on, and you know, squads are getting exciting. It's going to be an interesting build up. There's a few teams doing some interesting things that we'll maybe get to. But listen, big chap, great to see you. As you said earlier, you can subscribe to read all the good stuff. £1 for 6 months or £12 for the year. Sign up now. I hope you've enjoyed the pod. I've loved it. It's like therapy for me speaking to the big chap. Gav, have a good one. Enjoy your days off, and we'll catch you very, very soon. In the meantime, my name is Bruce Aitchison, and happiness is egg-shaped. Remember it, everybody, no matter what he says. See you soon.